to NFL Daily. I'm Gregg Rosenthal. Beyond lucky today to be joined by Jourdan Rodrigue of The Athletic with me in the studio, the Chris Wesseling podcast studio. And somewhere in the sunny environs of Las Vegas, Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports. I'm really excited about this show. You know, we've been doing it a little bit here, and as you hopefully have learned, if you're a listener, we're going to have a bunch of different flavors of this show. Different shows will have different flavors, and this show's flavor, Nate, is dork. That's our flavor. Let's get into schemes. It's good to see you, buddy. You look very rested. And you look handsome, and I haven't seen you since.
Are you glowing?
Since the
You're
Super Bowl,
and a little bit.
Glowing. The wife hasn't killed me yet. Like that's what's going on. That's why I think I have a lot of takes pent up, and maybe that's what I'm glowing with. I'm bursting at the seams with takes. That was a very fun. Is that from like the NFL Films archive there?
We're leaning hard into NFL Films.
That's not the autumn wind. That was like the preamble to it. Like beforehand, it was the summer wind. I can't do that either. That's Sinatra. But no, I'm happy to be here. I usually get like nerd or anything, but one time I got described as like, it was old co-host with Dane and I, Dane Brugler. He was like, "Oh, our draft geeks." And I felt like I almost got insulted there.
Yeah.
Like where I was just like, yeah, geek, you know, that's a step below nerd and everything.
You're none of those things. Yeah, you're a tall, strapping, former D1 athlete and, back up to Russell Wilson. So that's more, at least athletically, as far as I know, Jourdan, than me or you have accomplished.
As far as you know.
I don't know. Maybe you don't know
all about my life.
It's great to have you back in the studio too, Jourdan. You're here, obviously, for our first show. And I wanted to get you back for this show because I just felt like you and Nate are the two perfect people to talk about like what's coming next, what we're interested in terms of NFL schemes. That's why today is the flavor of dork. And I mean that in the best way possible. Like I love this stuff and it's a good time of year, I think, to talk about what trends we've seen maybe on the field and what we're looking forward to. And I left it pretty open-ended. Nate, I know you have a piece coming up on Yahoo Sports about this, so you are very well prepped. You also have a podcast coming up on Yahoo Sports in a couple of weeks, so I'm really looking forward to listening to that. But it can be league-wide, it can be a specific team, it can be coach, it can be anything. And Jourdan, I want you to get us going.
Well, I'm excited to start because I'm going to steal Nate's answer from him immediately. You know what I'm going to say?
I think I know. I think so.
Okay, at the same time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Pistol.
The Rams? Oh, your Rams pistol. I was going to say Rams pistol. Okay, okay.
I knew you were going to...
point. I knew you were going to someone's going to bring this up, so I have a bullet point on this, so I'm ready. I'm ready for the pistol.
Well, okay, so I'm not going to be the person who comes on here and talks about the Rams all the time. I do want the listeners to know that. We're talking about a lot of different things, but this was extremely fascinating to watch and cover last year. The Rams started deploying significant amounts of pistol formation, especially in the latter half of the season. They ended up with like about 100 snaps by all said and done. They didn't just start it after the bye. You saw a little like test of concept earlier in the season, but they really sort of spammed it later in the season. It basically allowed Matthew Stafford to do what he likes, which is be a shotgun quarterback and a drop back quarterback, while also having the entire run menu involved, like at his disposal, because the under center run menu was, you can keep that in the play sheet and in the call sheet if you're in the pistol, even though you're in sort of what looks a little bit like the gun with the running back immediately behind the quarterback. What was really good about this was it kind of helped them get back to some of their zone runs. Nate, I know you wrote really well about this over at Yahoo. I love that piece that you wrote. It was super helpful in like parsing some of this that we were watching last year. I think it's next because it works. I think you're going to see a lot of teams using it because it works. The Dolphins used it a lot. The Falcons used it a lot. But when you see those teams that, Dolphins and Rams specifically, that other teams are studying their cut-ups and their run packages and their sequencing and all of that, you're going to see teams copy. And I think this is a really good example of being able to blend this concept specifically to not only keep your entire menu open to not give tells to aggressive defenses, but also to kind of just keep adding things back in once they shifted to like the duo team for the first time in the last several years. They were able to get back into some of their
explain that to listeners. Even just explain to listeners what pistol is in general.
Yeah, so pistol is when, I mean, it literally looks like a pistol. It's when the running back is lined up directly behind the quarterback, and the quarterback is, in this case, four steps or so behind the center. So instead of purely under center, where you also see the running back lined up behind the quarterback has some space between the center and himself. And instead of the shotgun, where the running back is off to one side of the quarterback, this sort of blends the two together. And by doing so, the defenders can't really tell which direction the running back is going to go. And it's a little bit closer to formation, so the play can develop quicker than if it were just a pure shotgun. And if the back was offset, then the defender has a tell, not only for some of the blitz and the pickups and things like that, but also which direction maybe the gaps are going to unfold because the running back is literally to one side. And then, you can keep running things like play action. A lot of coaches don't like to run. Nate, you can elaborate on this. A lot of coaches don't like to run a full like play action menu out of shotgun. It limits them. But pistol, you have a full menu open to yourself, and then you can also get to some zone stuff a little bit easier that way because, again, you're not just on one side of the quarterback as the running back. And
I love that the Rams, and we've seen this with the entire Sean McVay career in Los Angeles, but even with Matthew Stafford, who's such an established quarterback and has things that he does well, like they change what they do a lot, and they don't stay static. You can't stay static, and it's pretty cool, Nate. I know Stafford's one of your favorite quarterbacks, to see him evolving and doing stuff that you haven't seen before. It's not like they're the first team to ever run pistol, but the league is just different now than it used to. I mean, the pistol, of course, famously created by Tyler Thigpen in Kansas City. No, I'm joking.
Well, I say,
but he
I know,
really
but
was
I say
kind of a fun one. And obviously Kaepernick with the 49ers.
Yeah, people have done it. Like, this isn't new. I don't say it's next because it's new. It's not new. And
but it's always,
you see it a lot in the college game
everything in the NFL has been done in some way before.
Yeah.
But the way you're talking about marrying the running game, like what gets you going about this, watching Stafford and in this evolution, Nate?
Yeah, it's merging two worlds, like Jourdan was kind of alluding to, and I thought the most important part is that defenses are really smart now. Like they've been smart before, but like I think they're just, the level of defensive play is higher than ever. And when teams, when Peyton Manning was with the Colts, like they were like the first team to be 50% shotgun. And that was insane at the time.
Wow.
Like that was like crazy. They were 50%. And now most of the teams are over 50, easily over 50. Some teams are over 90% in the shotgun. And okay, when we have standard runs, okay, if the running back is away from the tight end, it's all based on where the tight end is and where the running back is. So if he's away from the tight end, they only can run this run, this run, this run. Okay, if we can limit it to rock, paper, scissors, and they only run rock and paper, okay, we can really make it easier on our defenders. So when you get to the pistol, it just opens up the menu, like Jourdan was alluding to. And you saw that with the Colin Kaepernick stuff when he was at Nevada, and then the 49ers kind of copied it because they wanted to get the QB run game involved. So now instead of just everything being zone read, now you can kind of get same side looks. So because the running back is downhill and where the quarterback is reading is to a different side than would it be on zone. And then you got to the next time we really saw a lot of pistol was Peyton Manning's last year with the Broncos, because Gary Kubiak wanted to run zone, and Peyton was too old to be under center, so they went to
move him back.
So they went to the pistol. So they moved him back to make it easier. That's a real thing that happened.
Sounds a bit familiar. Sounds a bit familiar.
Exactly. But
well, it shows it's flexible. If like Colin Kaepernick kind of out of the womb as an NFL player, and Peyton Manning can both do it.
You don't have to be able to move as a quarterback for this to work, is what Nate's getting at here. Yeah.
You're cheating 4 yards. But when you get, and this is where I think it's what's cool with the Rams version, is I always think of pistol, it's like, oh, it's to open up the QB run game a little bit. So that's why you can just open up some more of the stuff. But when you watch it with Stafford, and like Jourdan was saying, the drop back passing game, it's now creating under center looks out of pistol, so where it's easier on Stafford, but he doesn't have to be under center. But now you're taking away the tells for the defense, because now if he's in what they call a home position, which is like an I formation position, but now it's shotgun, pistol. Now the defense this linebacker doesn't know if I blitz or not, because I don't know if the running back's releasing to my side on his route. We don't know if the run game is this. So it's really the first and second down looks that this is where I thought the Rams really cranked it up. The Ravens game, I'm sure Jourdan could speak to, like that game, you saw it a lot because they're trying to mess with defenses that are blitz happy and simulated pressure happy, because they're trying to, those guys now can't key in on something. Okay, the back's away from the tight end. I'm Patrick Queen. I know I'm blitzing now.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now he's behind the quarterback. All right, we got to wait till the snap of the ball to see which side he goes. So you're just creating half seconds.
And just from a layman's point of view, for me, it's like the pistol accomplishes both things. It's like it's in between in a way that you can really do everything, and it's exciting. And I love that you have just like an absolute fireballer behind center still, and seeing the best of Matthew Stafford. And I just hope he stays healthy, and I just hope he is like he was last year, because when that was all happening, and my daughter's a Rams fan, I just had this feeling. I was like, ooh, I actually think they have like a non-insignificant chance to win the Super Bowl this year. Like things have to go right, but if you played the NFC playoffs out, I think they make the Super Bowl like a couple times at least, and it just didn't happen for them. They lost a close game. It's like, I just hope they can have Stafford at this age that healthy and playing that well all season again, and I'm hopeful, and we look forward to that. In the meantime, I want you guys all to listen to these just beautiful commercials. We will be back after the break, and we're finally going to get to all of Nate's points. He has so many points. Back on NFL Daily, and we've reached the portion of the program where it's just time to let Nate cook. we got to hear it. We got to hear what you got. What's your best scheme note that you want to start with?
This was going to be my 2-strike pitch.
Yeah.
But I'll start the bat with it. This is, I see your 2 safety looks. I see the top-down defenses, and I raise you 3 safety looks. And not just, I'm not talking just big nickel. I'm talking 3 safety shells. And I know there is a large British fan base of this show, but they would love to know that this is very much like the 3 center back looks that you're seeing in soccer, that you've seen the last 5-10 years kind of proliferate a little bit. But the 2 defenses that I think are going to be the best examples of this, there might be others that maybe I'm just not focusing on, maybe like the Raiders or something, but the Cardinals defense with defensive coordinator Nick Rawlis, who's 30 years old. And actually, I went to high school with his 2 brothers, which is a small world. And his brother is a former WWE wrestler named Brawl.
So this like marries your world very well, basically.
It's so weird. It's so weird. Like little Nick is the defense coordinator in the NFL. Like great for him. And he's doing a lot of fun stuff. So it's kind of, yeah. But, and then also Shane Bowen, defense coordinator for the Giants. So I think these 2 are the best examples of what I'm going to be talking about here. But Jordan, you guys, you already hinted at this point, so it's perfect. We're talking about micro reactions before the snap. So the Shanahan offenses especially, so the teams that do it the best, the Packers, Rams, 49ers, the Falcons last year, which maybe the Steelers this year, the Dolphins, these teams that have really weaponized motion, the Cardinals offense, that they're trying to get you hot at the snap of the ball, get you out leveraged, get you out of position, you being the defense, getting all 11 defenders off of the same page. And how defenses kind of counteracted that is quarters, cover 4, 2 safety looks. We've talked a lot about it. There's been rise and fall of another head coach already who read actually a couple of them that were the leaders of this types of coverage. But the ones that I think kind of took this and kind of
who are you talking about here? Someone that worked right across
maybe the other
street?
Los Angeles team. Yeah,
I mean, why you can put Brandon Staley's name out there.
The Staleyfication
it's okay.
that came and went. But so what they were trying to do with the quarters looks is top down, keep everything in front of us. We can adjust with our 2 safeties. And if you want to motion, you want to shift, our safeties will kind of be a safety, fill in from the back, fill in from top down. We're not going from the line of scrimmage backwards now. We're going from the safety spots downwards. And when you watch this Cardinals defense and the Titans defense last year, who Bowen was defense coordinator of, now Giants, they were taking guys like Budda Baker, and he was a true, what I would call a monster back, which is fine ball, see ball, get ball kind of player, like a true rover, a guy that could just move around.
Bob Sanders.
Yeah. What they did was really though, what they did was rather than have the slot player or the other linebacker by the mic, linebacker, and rather than have him as a safety all the way back, they kind of put him in between the linebacker and the safety. This kind of in between spot. And what that allows them to do is now, rather than having a guy from the line of scrimmage work backwards, or now we have to bump everybody because of a motion at the snap of the ball, Budda Baker, whoever this roving player is, he can fill in where away from the motion, towards the motion. He can be a slot player. He could be a Tampa 2 player like Brian Urlacher. He could be the deep safety. He could be a blitzer. So they created this kind of motion piece, this move piece. And the Titans were doing this a little bit last year. Roger McCreary was an interesting player. He's doing a little bit of this in the safeties they had in Tennessee last year. So it's really interesting. I'm curious if more defenses copy it. The Cardinals had one of the worst defenses last year.
I was going to say, I want to kind of bring that up, that like these two defenses, not that effective.
But they weren't.
The process was clear. We've covered this.
I
the
see what
stats
they're
were
doing.
terrible. The process was clear. Yeah.
I see what they're trying to do. And I think more defenses are going to copy that because we have seen more weaponized slot players. Brian Branch, Devin Weatherspoon, Kyle Hamilton. You saw a little bit of this with the Ravens last year. But I think this kind of like true move that guy into the middle of the field and into that in-between area, that I think is going to get copied a little bit more. Might be the whole major of the defense outside of these two or maybe a couple others. But I think more teams are going to go, hey, this gets our best guys out there. And I think it's a great answer to all that motion stuff, all the other things, and it doesn't make you predictable. And this is the last thing. Watching the Cardinals defense against the 49ers, it was in Arizona. That was kind of a game that was kind of like, okay, I see what you're doing here. It changes the pre-snap and post-snap look for the quarterback. He can't just go, okay, it's cover two. Oh, it's single high. Oh, it's man coverage. Now he has to go, all right, where's Budda Baker going? Wait, where is the other safety going? Again, we just talked about micro reactions. Those little quarter, half seconds add up. It helps the defensive pass rush get there. It maybe makes the quarterback go to the wrong spot or make it hold on to the ball for a half second. So I just see this kind of freedom of the defense and these funky looks. This is the motion for the defense. The motion is shifting of offense. This is their version on defense. And I think we're only going to see more and more of it.
Yeah, I call that because it's evolving, right? Because you've seen a lot of teams put their hybrid safety or their hybrid corner in a bigger nickel. You see the star was really popular. I mean, the star has been around forever. I'm not saying it's new, but it was repopularized a couple of years ago. But I kind of call this the shooting star because they can float. Like they can float across. Like they're not confined necessarily to the rest of the.
And who are good examples of that?
I mean, we're probably gonna see it. We're probably gonna see more. I would think.
We'll see more of these guys. The slot, because it's just happening in college, and we just get these guys propping up into the NFL. So just last year, the rookie and second year players last year, there was just all these slot guys, and so they're all dynamic blitzers. They're all good in coverage. They're all good tacklers. So it's become it's called the star in certain defenses, but the slot, the nickel, whatever. But it's literally becoming a star position, where you put your most dynamic player because they can just do so much.
We love a double meaning. We love a double meaning.
And so so what they said was, rather than have our star just only be in the slot and kind of be predictable that he only could do three things. All right, let's move him like a helicopter. Let's move him to the middle so where he can rove any spot that we need him. I originally was going to call him a sweeper, like in soccer.
I like that too.
It doesn't work perfect, but it works close enough for kind of what they're doing.
And we've seen more three safety looks just in general, certainly the Cowboys with Dan Quinn and the Patriots last year. It just makes sense. And this is a show about big league-wide trends and adjusting and how the game is always evolving. And part of the issues with modern defenses is just these linebackers getting attacked and in coverage. And so one solution is just have another safety be that linebacker, essentially. And I don't understand it as well as you guys do, but that's essentially it. It's a lighter, faster league, but you still need to have the physicality to hold up in the running game. And this is one possibility for that. I want to ask you about, do you think and I know you were
really quick
thinking about this.
Yeah,
Go
if
ahead.
you don't mind. I'm sorry. Nate, you got me thinking about it. I remember when the idea for non-coverage confined nickel players is to make them an unavoidable player. So the quarterback sees them and automatically looks elsewhere, which to Nate's point forces a little bit of hesitation. So I think that is also one part of it that you've seen in defenses already in the way that they move and manipulate, whoever the slot player is. But with this, it's really interesting because they literally can orbit the front seven essentially. And these teams that really capitalize on the middle of the field, well, they can also sort of float, shooting star, they can float sort of pre-snap. When I was mentioning the walk-around defense, you mentioned the Cardinals when, the walk-around, it kind of just we're shuffling around and all of a sudden, boom, they're in their snap look versus necessarily rotating post-snap. They kind of were moving and sort of like, oh, is there a game here today? And then all of a sudden, boom, they're in this look. And then the quarterback's like, oh, the player in the void where I was looking is in that void. So I got to look elsewhere. And it's all about, the quarterback always says, make the defense hesitate just a little bit longer. Well, this is, to Nate's point, making the offense allegedly and in their hopes hesitate just a little bit longer. Yep. Look deeper in the progression, look somewhere else, look for the layup, look for something that is not targeting that player. As long as that proof of concept is there, they can make the play on the ball. They're, and like to that point, I do think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more of that because everything in this league is built around stopping the pass and now adjusting to the pre-snap eye candy and the pre-snap movement in ways that aren't just, playing landmarks as a defense, because you can't necessarily always play the motion itself, but you can still understand the tendencies of the offense of where that ball is going to end up on the field. But teams are even messing with that now too. So you have to have these players.
I feel like if you want good PR as a defensive coordinator, you just do like the walk around defense. Because you always get pop for that. That's like every couple of years, someone gets super into it for 4 games just because they're desperate. Yeah. And Belichick actually, everyone's taking their little turn with it. But if you do the walk around defense where everything looks crazy before the snap, you get a lot of pop. I want to ask you guys how you think and
then they get run on for 20 yards.
Right, exactly.
That's what happens.
It has to be tricky.
Time.
The Patriots were good at it because they had big players and they wouldn't do it too much. They just sprinkle it in every once in a while to mess with you. But
it's an ephus pitch. Yes. It's an ephus pitch. You don't use it all the time. Yeah.
How do you think? I guess in this could lead to just another thing to talk about, because we know it's a trend because all you have to do is look at the coaching staffs around the league. How do you think the Mike McDonald defensive tree plays into this, but also just is going to play into this season? Because I think for most fans out there, it's flown a little under the radar that Mike McDonald, who did about as good a job as any defensive coordinator over the last 2 years in the NFL, coming from Michigan and going to the Ravens. Everyone knows he got hired in Seattle, but then, okay, so there's one style of his defense there. And then in Baltimore, he gets replaced by Zachary Orr. And so there's one there. And then we go to the Titans and we got a Ravens assistant, Denard Wilson, there. And then we go to the Dolphins and they hired Anthony Weaver, another one of those. So literally 4 coordinators from the exact same staff who, was very effective and were doing things a little bit differently than a lot of the league, are suddenly running teams. So that's, an eighth of the league is now this Mike McDonald defense. How do you think that's going to affect things? Like, what are they going to look like? And related to everything we're talking about too, with all the safeties.
Yeah. And I think I'd love to hear Nate's breakdown of why this defense has popularized so suddenly. And so as these things do, if it works against high powered offenses, if it stops high powered offenses, you're going to hire.
I basically happen because Mike McDonald beat the Shanahan tree a couple times in prime time. So owners and stuff.
But also,
all right, let's do that.
His defense looks smart and it looks sick.
Right. No, it doesn't. Yeah. I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. Nope. I just mean in big spots when people were watching, he slowed down the most unstoppable offenses in football. And so
exactly.
It's not that complicated. Yeah. Owners and coaches are just let's get that. But 4 seems like a lot.
I think what's super interesting is you've seen some of these coaches, and Mike McDaniel being one of these coaches, literally walk out of the Fangio system era. It's still ongoing, whatever, but walk out of that and into very quickly.
He was a little late on the trend, and now we'll see if he's early on this one.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And then in the Chargers have Jesse Minter, also doing the Ravens, Michigan double resume builder, the Harbaurization of your resume. No, I think what this, and it's hard to just go it's not this defense is the Tampa 2 or the Seahawks cover 3 or the Dick LeBeau, zone blitzing scheme, Blitzburg stuff. It's everything. That is the gift of this defense. And I think what Mike McDonald, this is gonna be
good luck to you.
God, too many Mikes, too many Irishmen and Scottish. But no, I think with that defense, it's a kaleidoscope scheme. That's kind of what I always get to. Why it's so hard on modern offenses is just what I was getting to with the 3 safety stuff. Is that you're trying to just cause those hesitations. So you're just, is this cover 2? Is this manned? Is this cover 3? Is this a blitz? Is this a simulated? So everything looks the same. In baseball, they call it pitch tunneling. It's the same thing to the quarterback. It's like, that is the same safety look I've seen all 5 snaps. But it's been 5 different coverages, all of that. That is, you wish everybody could do that. What that takes is a lot of good coaching and a lot of detail orientation. So I want to say that this defense can work when you have the guy that can write it, when you have the author and you have the guy that's coaching it, like the Seahawks do. When that kind of thinking spreads, that's where I get a little worried, where it's kind of going, all right, do you guys all have, Roquan Smith? Do you guys all have Kyle Hamilton? Do you all have Justin Madubuike? Do you have Jadeveon Clowney on his best year? Do you have Marlon Humphrey tackling? All right, well, you have different personnel. How are you going to use it? Because this defense is supposed to be adaptable to its personnel. If you're going to point at one thing that maybe they major in, it's the simulated pressures, which, just is they only blitz 4 or rush 4, but it's the non-traditional 4, makes it look like a blitz. That's maybe what their fastball is. But I think what this defense is and what they kind of, what the scheme, the theory, the whatever you want, philosophy of this defense is that they run everything well. They are a pitcher with 5-6 pitches that they can throw on a pitch count. That's what they are. But again, when the brain drain happens a little bit, that gets me a little worried when people are like, I'm going to copy that defense. It's like, are you? Okay, we'll see how you do with that personnel and without the mastermind maybe behind it. So guys like Jesse Minter, I have a little trust in, because what I saw he did in college at Michigan, he has some proof of concept. Other guys that haven't called play, we'll see. We'll see.
But
we'll
also
see
they might have their own thing. And that's the thing, is it's very hard to predict who has their own ideas that have contributed to what happened before, but they're different people. They're different coaches. It's like, Belichick's had successful people leave and unsuccessful people leave. And Flores is his own, like, you can see the Belichick influence on Flores, but he is very much his own guy. And I tend to think Zachary Orr is the best bet, because he's the one the Ravens chose, and the Ravens are smart. So they could have chosen
smart team,
Denard Wilson or Anthony Weaver. They had a years-long job interviews for all of them. Right. And so I just tend to trust that they made a good choice of those 3, but the other 2 might also be great. Everyone, and they might be great at different things. Anthony Weaver was a guy I know teams seriously considered for head coaching jobs and is a leader.
Yeah, I think
from what I've heard about Orr is great things too. So I will say that. So
yeah, I mean, I think all of these guys, as you guys both said, have the potential to be outstanding. The main thing that we see over and over again when systems are borrowed, offense, defense, now special teams, because now we'll have little schematic twists on the different special teams things, but the teachability of it, how you can communicate and build progression and evolution in that defense while simultaneously game planning while you're in the heat of a season. It's a teaching progression that is usually very specific to the teacher. We heard reporting last year of some of the things with Brandon Staley was the teachability in terms of the progression of concepts wasn't necessarily there the way that it was in that 1 year in Los Angeles. And so that's always the kind of red flag that you look for, is like, it's not just does it work? Yes, it works. Generally speaking, this works, that worked. How can you apply it to a wide variety of people in a way that builds a natural progression over time to where you're trimming fat? Chris Vassar, who is a great defensive analyst, and I read and listen to a lot of his stuff. He had a really great quote about Mike McDonald, who he knows really well and has worked with. And he said, this defense's best pieces aren't the front structure or the coverages, but the structure that encapsulates it. It's not the calls. It's the ability to have a lot of tools with less teaching, so you're never surprised you're stuck. So it's like a no waste defense, or a defensive philosophy of teaching specifically, less so talking about scheme specific stuff, but it is no waste in the sense that the things that click with your players, you keep those things and you remove the things that don't, and you evolve and adjust your own structure underneath your general philosophy to be malleable to what your players can do and are actually, and you're not yourself sticking to what works just because you think it works and because it has worked before. So I think that's where Mike McDonald has the potential to be special, but people who have worked under him for a while, I think for multiple years, that's going to be the key thing, is watching how he's done that, watching how he's organized and bucketed information and disseminated that information in pieces that build progression to me, that makes or breaks a scheme like this. And,
Right.
and that's the same for offense, but with something like this, where we think it might be new, new, it's, everything, again, everything cycles around. But when we think it could be the next wave, it's actually just going to be how it's taught, less so what it is.
Yeah, teaching could be like the new Moneyball, It's like, seriously, it just seems like that's honestly a huge area for NFL teams to take advantage of that they just don't. They say they don't have time to do it, but to figure out how to quickly and concisely teach NFL players things they need to learn, starting with like fundamentals and just very specifically what they need to do. And I think that's probably lacking. And you're right. It's very easy to imagine that's harder when you're a head coach rather than a defensive coordinator. I think that might have tripped up Brandon Staley, or maybe he just wasn't always connecting on that teaching level or having the right players that he needed to be able to teach, but that's on them. Breaking football is complicated. That's what this show has been all about. It really is, and I love it. Like, it's the middle of July, and to me, this is the perfect time to get into this stuff and hopefully make you guys smarter. We're going to take one quick break, then we're going to do a speed round and have a little after dinner mint. Back on NFL Daily, and we're gonna try. These are complicated things. They're big concepts. We're gonna try to hit a few quickly, and then we'll wrap things up. Been great to spend this Monday morning with you. I mean, let's be real. It's not Monday morning. It went out in the feed like overnight. We obviously taped it before. Let's talk about 12 personnel, just because this is obviously not like a new thing, but it did pop up a little more in fun places last year. It is the second most common, personnel usage. It was relatively at a high, not that it had a huge spike last year, but it was one of the highest years of the last 10 years. But the team that used it the most was the Packers, and it was just very effective with Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft, and it was just like awesome. And I think they're going to expand on that. And, we've seen it. We've seen as the NFL evolves, and we've seen different times when it's more popular than others. Obviously, the Gronk, Aaron Hernandez, when they really came out, like that offense had a lot of new elements, but really the way they used those two tight ends was a specific part of it. And I think about, again, we're talking about lighter defenses. How can you take advantage of them? This is one way. And I think of the Packers and LaFleur, who had the LaFleur-essence last year, just cooking. And I think of the Bills, with Kincaid and Dawson Knox. Yeah. I think of the Raiders this year with Michael Mayer and
Brock,
of course, and
your favorite name, I know already.
I know, and Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely in Baltimore. And so those are also those are all really compelling teams. And I'm curious just how they're going to be used. And I think there at least it's going to be ticking up, and especially the Packers are going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, they love that. I think and Nate, I think, can speak on this too. Is like teams don't like to sub, especially if they want to go fast. And so I think you might be onto something with an increase in a specific personnel usage increasing in that way, because if it's working, they're going to want to move the ball down the field. They don't want to sub back in, get another receiver on the field, float those guys in and out. They're going to want to just go, right? And I think that's another step in this that will, by proxy, increase the percentage of snaps that you do see with those teams, and with more teams who are running 12 personnel. They're not going to want to sub. And you see it with, like, I remember Matt LaFleur was talking last year about how he always was fascinated with the way that some of his cohorts used the larger receivers to kind of be hybrid fullback tight end guys who are doing some of the same type of disguises and blocking looks and basically making everything go, all these different personnels go out of 11 personnel. And I know Nate's classic joke that I'll always take with me everywhere was, you call it 11 and a half personnel between 11 and 12. And so, but I think that with some of these coaches who do like that, because you don't have to sub, you can go fast and you don't have to bring guys on and off the field. What coaches like now is that you can capitalize against smaller, lighter defenders. You can, again, find the similar voids in the field, the way that we've talked about this entire show. And you don't have to sub if you have multiple tight ends who are capable of, maybe you don't have three receivers you want to keep on the field, and your 12 works really well.
Look at these teams, Ravens, Raiders, like those second tight ends. I mean, it's why I think Nate, not to cut you off, but I know you're getting used to it,
we keep
Jordan.
Drink.
I think Nate, you were, when they drafted Bowers, like you thought it makes sense because those two tight ends work together and they don't have a third receiver now they have.
I wanted him on the Rams. That's where I really
the Rams
wanted
the Rams.
Yeah.
I know. And I couldn't believe I almost manifested that. I was like, I was giddy about that for a minute. Well, are the Rams going to run more 12 because they signed Colby Parkinson? So I
100% believe they're going to run more 12.
I think so too.
Tyler Higbee coming off a serious injury that might take a while.
Nobody sleep.
And
Fantasy
Davis
football
Allen,
people
right?
don't sleep on Davis Allen. Yeah,
he had a good moments last year, and again against the Ravens.
Let's wrap up this show with you, Jourdan, and you're going to give us our after dinner mint today.
Yeah, so I like the concept of the after dinner mint that you introduced in the debut of the show, and I was a little nervous when you asked me to do it because mine are I gravitate toward earnestness and bittersweetness, right? Those are the spaces I like to be in, and I think about training camps opening. Like you think about what the bubble of camp really means. It is a space where the players and the coaches are all, it's all very raw and real, and there's no hiding from anybody. You are who you are in that space for 2-3 weeks. You learn a lot about each other and you work really hard and there's a lot of pain. And I think about some of the things that we pass to each other and some of the experiences that we pass to each other as humans. And I remember a young man named Austin O'Connor, who went out to Carolina Panthers training camp in Spartanburg every single year with his dad. And sadly, his dad passed away. This was several years ago. And he decided that he was going to take his father's ashes and spread them all over the world where they'd taken trips. And one of those places was he traveled to Spartanburg and he made the same drive that they did. And he went out to the field very, very early in the morning. And I want to paint the picture of Spartanburg there because it is unlike any other place to have a football practice. There's like this humidity that rises from the ground down there. And it's this mist that swirls all around you. And so he walked to the edge of the field into the end zone and he, placed some of his father's ashes there. And I remember thinking like, that's happening. And then all of this, like players were having babies in camp. Their wives were having babies. Another player's brother passed away during camp. I mean, there was so much of existence and life happening in that very confined space. And all of those things are part of the human experience and what we pass to each other. And this is not the mint that you expected, I know.
No, I love it.
But that's what I every year when training camps open, I think of Austin O'Connor, I think of his father, and I think of walking through the mist that morning and him having that quiet moment and passing that into the field, the very field on which these players were about to have these very real, very honest, very vulnerable, raw, hard experiences with each other and build a team and camaraderie that they would then pass to each other through the rest of that season and beyond.
No, I think it's beautiful. And I think, as people that we've been working in football for a while, it's like, it's the start of the year. It's rebirth. It's everything. And yeah, rookies are reporting this week at a few places. The Texans will be the first team to report fully later in the week because they're in the Hall of Fame game. Like it is happening. And it's not just like the feeling of like, okay, school's starting, like we're back. I know, Nate, you feel that like that the NFL calendar is just sort of your body clock at this point. And it's a certain sort of fun, innocent excitement. But I love that you pointed out the family aspect to it because like the NFL is expensive and training camp's affordable and it's easy to go to. And for anyone that hasn't gone to training camp, and if you have kids or if you don't, like, it's a great experience because you just see these players up close in a way that you would have to pay. You couldn't see them up close, like no matter how much you paid if it was during the regular season. And the players are cool. They're in a better mood. You can kind of scout and see which days that they're maybe doing a little extra versus days where they're not going through that much. You can find that out if you kind of like look at the beat writers and what the schedule is. But yeah, my son, like he can't wait. Like he's begging to go because I think he has as much or more fun going to watch a training camp practice than he does going to a regular season game. There is just kind of a beauty and an innocence about it.
It was my first job. Was
doing what?
Training camp ball boy was my first job.
It all makes sense now.
Originally, yeah, training. I always liked the equipment guys, man. Like my first boss was Dennis Ryan, longtime equipment guy for the Minnesota Vikings. But it was, so for me growing up, camp was at first it was work, and I was kind of like, I'm missing all of August. Could be hanging out with my friends. Instead, I'm in Mankato, Minnesota, staying at a college dorm with no air conditioning. And then as I got older, like really once I kind of realized, the path I was going down.
Yeah, that's never happening for you. At some point, you just give it up and you're just like, I'm not going to be that friend. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then camp started. And then I started looking forward to camp once I hit high school. Like once I ninth grade or so hit, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm reading the script behind these players. So like my memories of camp, and I've gotten this as I've gotten older, maybe away from like the day-to-day of the game, but in my own now media career and being around the draft a few times now and seeing what the draft's like, is that it's hope. And I think that's what's so cool about training camp and the draft is that you're selling hope to the fans. And I think that's awesome. Not just the fans, I should say, to the entire organization, and to teams and to coaches. Everything's a clean slate. Oh, they caught us last year, but now we got Carl on our team. We didn't have Carl last year, but now we do. But like, you don't know who the secret key is going to be. It could be Carl. It could be some 6th-round rookie, or it could be the number 1 freaking pick. And I think that's what's so cool. NFL is not for long in a negative way, but it's also the opposite of that is how much can get built up. And I think that's why so many quickly too. And I think that Puka Nacua, a great example, but I think that's what's so cool is that you can start seeing those flashes in the draft, and then you start seeing them in camp, and then you start seeing it week 1. And if you're a kid at 12 years old with your dad watching practice, you go, I remember when Puka caught that touchdown and we said he was going to be good. And I think that's why camp, I think, has so many special memories for people. And I think, Greg, you brought up the best point. It's usually very affordable, and it's a very I've
free,
gone to camps
free.
now. It's free for a lot of people. I mean, the fan
equity.
events with, yeah, right. Yeah. But the fan events around them, I'm getting to see this from a media perspective because, again, I was always involved with the game. So I never stepped out into the parking lot, and so it's kind of gotten pretty cool for me to see that from maybe a different perspective as I've gotten older. And I think it's great.
Well, it was a great way to take a look, kind of big picture around the league a lot. We're looking forward to, and training camp is coming. Hope to have you back on sometime, Nate, and obviously Jourdan. Loved having you again. That's it for NFL Daily today. For Nate Tice and Jourdan Rodrigue, we will be back on Tuesday. Excited for this show with Colleen Wolfe back in the Chris Wesseling podcast studio and Patrick Claybon. We will see you then.